You want to know the one technique everyone uses to make a fat beat and hit songs? It's modulation. I'm Peter Elfman. You go grab yourself a drink, get comfy, and let's moderately discuss modulation. Hey everybody, I'm Peter Elfman. I'm a novice music producer making videos for producers starting out just like me. Vlog date 202312.15. I'm sure you'll figure it out. How are you doing? How am I doing? It's the holiday seasons. If you're celebrating now or you're about to celebrate, happy holidays. You get to pick which one. It could be all of them. That would be fun. Speaking of holidays, I just finished a new song, 12 Days. Guess what that's short for? We're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. Today's topic is modulation. What is modulation? According to Google, modulation is the exertion of a modifying or controlling influence on something. Say what? What does that mean in terms of music? It means change. Modulation, the thing that lets you play the same part multiple times with changes for each iteration so that you're not exactly repeating yourself. And that is extremely important for music generation. And I'm talking across cultures, across genres. I've whittled down modulation to 4 basic categories. And these are what we're going to discuss today. So let's get to it with category number 1. Modulation technique 1, modulate the instrument over time. We're looking at an unpublished song of mine I worked on with a collaboration partner I met over on a Discord channel. And what we're looking at specifically is the lead part. Right now, this is broken up into 2 identical vital patches and a flute layered in because the patch kind of sounded like a flute and I wanted an actual flute sound in there. A little bit of sound design, so I captured it and did some reversing for some build-up effects, and then the bus that is all playing through. So that's the lead part, and what we've got going on, if we take a look at the automation, there's a lot going on. This is a Black Lotus patch. Apparently it was meant to be an ARP, but I like the sound of it for this particular song, and so I went with it. Now, this patch has all 4 macros going, plus the mod wheel, and believe me, I abused the crap out of it. So here we go. I've got automation chains for all 5 of those modulators. And it doesn't really matter what's doing what, but if we take a quick look, like mod 1 is messing with the filter mix and the flanger mix. Mod 2 is doing a bunch of work. Mod 3 is messing with the distortion. Mod 4 is working with the tuning and spread of one of the oscillators. And then the mod wheel is just working hard. Some EQ automation, compression automation, messing with the filter, first filter. There's a lot going on. And we can see in the beginning of the part that we've got the mod wheels, we've got all 5 engaged. So the goal is to basically make sure that when the part plays, it never gets boring. As the part plays, it modulates a bunch of different parameters over time. And since there are 5 ways to modulate it, throughout the course of the song, the tone of the instrument never quite sound identical 2 sections in a row, even 2 notes in a row, as it were. So I'm just going to play this first bit real quick. And you can see all the knobs slowly changing. Mod wheel's moving, macro's moving. Here comes macro 2. Now, on top of that, Come on, you can do it. On top of that, we have a crap ton of modulation going on the bus mix. So right now on the bus, let's take a quick look at the plugins. What are we rocking here? We are rocking voice doubler, fresh air, kilohertz, dual delay, which is a really nice delay. Pro EQ, that's the pack-in equalizer, wider for some width, and then solo for additional width control. And I'm not sure why I'm rocking 2 right now. It seemed like a good idea at the time, so we're just going to roll with it. There's a lot going on. And then for parameters, right now all of the modulated parameters are on the kilohertz delay. So I'm messing with the feedback, I'm messing with the tone, I'm messing with the crosstalk. So all that is going while the instrument is changing, which adds an additional level of modulation. And that is also how you can modulate the part. If you are working with an instrument that has modulation or key switches. So if we take a look at the instrument part real quick. So velocity control, and velocity is a real easy way to modulate things, especially if you have an instrument that has a strong reaction to velocity. So like if you're using a rompler that's got velocity layers or something along those lines. In addition, we have pitch bend. So this song, I wanted to do a little bit of pitch bending on key notes. So this is just the flute part, which is more or less mimicking what we just heard. So that's playing underneath the synth. And we're just going to take a quick look at the automation lane over here. This is the length of the part. So what I did, and this isn't necessarily something you have to do, but for this particular song, I wanted similar tonal quality in the A part and the B part, but different enough that I couldn't easily accomplish the changes via automation. So what I did was I split an A and B part into different parts, as you can see. They have more or less, it's the same patch, but there are subtle tweaks between them, subtle differences I changed between them to get different sounds. And also there was a bit where I wanted a little bit of overlay, and this is mostly why I separated it between the ending of the second part and the beginning of the first part when it repeated. So like over here, and this would have been harder to do if it had been running on the same part. Track, that's what I'm looking for. So basically I wanted different automation running on the beginning of part A Redux after part B finished from part B. And that was a lot easier to accomplish by just separating the two into different tracks. Right, so then we've got all this going on. So that's more or less how you can augment a single part. Every instrument you're going to use is going to have methods of modulating it. It's going to have a mod wheel, or it's going to have something connected to the mod wheel. It's going to have some parameter that you can tweak, and absolutely go for it. Velocity, parameter shifts, pitch shifting. We're just going to take a quick listen at the back end because there are different changes in the back than there are in the front, and then we're going to solo all of this. On to the next section. All right, so we are looking at my latest finished piece, 12 Days, short for 12 Days of Christmas. Happy holidays. And this is going to be an example of how to modulate the instruments that are playing a part. Now, 12 Days of Christmas is an extreme example of modulating instrumentation for a part. Were this an actual vocal version, I wouldn't need to have done all of this modulation, because the lyrics would be the modulation for the parts. There are no lyrics here. There's no vocalists. It's just instrumentation. So what I did was, for every day, 12 days, we've got 12 groups of instruments. We can just skip the drums for now and the bass, because the bass is just providing support. We've got piano, organ, Wurlitzer, a synth number 1. We've got a horn section on a bus. We've got a string section on a bus. We've got flutes on a bus. We've got 2 electric guitars on a bus. We have a second synthesizer. We've got some pipes, so like 3 different xylophone and a glockenspiel instruments on a bus. And this time I've got some VCA going on for some weirdness. And I've got steel pan, because why not? Steel pan sounds happy, and Christmas songs are supposed to sound happy. And then we've also got, for various reasons, 2 different forms of bells. And then I think I mixed something down to get a reverse. It's probably a bell. That is relatively extreme, but that is absolutely one of the ways you can easily modulate a part, is repeat a musical section with a different instrument. It's common across multiple genres, and it's an easy thing to do, because, I mean, in this case, if you're working with MIDI, you just copy the MIDI down, and you shouldn't do that, but I mean, you can start with that, and I absolutely did not just do that. We're going to give you a taste. We'll give you the back end of the song. Bonus tip, another way to modulate your piece, you can modulate the tempo, which is, there's a bunch of tempo modulation going on in this track. Bass tempo is 140 and it goes as low as 90 for the very end and hits 115 once or twice during the song. So I think you get the idea. And ideally, when you're modulating a part between 2 instruments, this should sound very different. And none of these instruments sound alike. Like the 2 synths have very different tonal qualities. Electric guitar versus horns versus strings versus steel pan. Steel pan. All right, let's move on to the next. The third way to modulate a part in your music is to actually modulate the part itself. Not just the parameters, but the actual musical notes. The quick and easy way of doing it is you add a harmony. That's the example I'm going to show you here. You don't need to add a single harmony part. You can go from a single tone to a triad to whatever, however many harmonies you want to add. My example here will only have 1 harmony, but that's all you really need for the example. Another way you can do that is, instead of or in addition to the harmonies, you can also jump an octave. So going up an octave will increase the energy of the song. This is useful, and you usually hear this towards the end of a piece. Or you can drop an octave to add something mellow. So let's just play this example real quick. This is from an unpublished, one of my earlier pieces is unpublished. I'm working on that, but anyway, it's called Last Licks. This was basically the last song I wrote before I moved 2 years ago. And what we're going to hear is just the lead part. You're going to hear the melody, and then you're going to hear the melody again with the harmony. And bonus tip, not a bonus tip, it's a repeat of the first tip. There's a whole lot of modulation going on. So we are working the mod wheel double time over here, as you can see. And the mod wheel, this is a vital patch. A vital patch from Jason Sounds called Hyperpop. And what's modulating... I've got the mod wheel, but it's actually connected to macro 1 just because I wanted to be able to perform the modulation. And macro 1 is mostly modulating the unison and the phase randomization. And basically it opens and closes. So it goes from relatively mono to wide stereo. All right, so let's check it out. We're going to move this over here so you can see the little knobs turn and go. So that's that. Additionally, I repeat this trick later on in the piece. This part repeats, but also there is a different part. I actually have a B section which sounds absolutely nothing like the A section. In one of my gazillion sample packs, I found this really cool vocal sample that I wouldn't say I abused it, but it definitely got put through its paces. And it actually had two samples that were more or less the same musical part, but one had a harmony modulation. So I was like, hey, sounds good. Let's go for it. So let's give that a quick listen. And then a little bit later on in that same section, and so there it is. It's basically you modulate, you add a harmony, you change the harmony. One typical thing you'll hear a lot in classical music and in film scores and television scores is they will actually modulate from a major chord to a minor chord or vice versa. I've actually used that trick myself on one or two pieces, all while playing more or less the same part. You're just changing one note in the harmony to add a little bit of flavor. And the classic minor to major or major to minor shift is done frequently. You'd be surprised how often it shows up. All right, that's it for this section. Time for modulation idea number 4. So we've talked about modulating an instrument part. We've talked about modulating by switching between instruments, and we've talked about modulating by adding or changing the musical part. The last category, you got to modulate the whole dang song, all the parts, everything. How do you do that? You change the key. You modulate the key. This is a tried and true method of adding energy and excitement to the back half of a song in pop music going back to the 50s. The best example I can think of, and obviously I can't play it because I don't really feel like getting a copyright strike. Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer. That last 2 iterations of the verse or whatever it is on a drastically higher key, and it's actually one of the more drastic key changes of the type in pop music. It just adds so much energy to the end of that song. And in that case, you're changing all the notes for all the parts. I'm sure there are a ton of other examples. I haven't quite done one yet, which is why we're not looking at a fancy DAW screen right now. You're just staring at my mug. So sorry. But that about covers it. So remember, especially if you're just starting out, if you're stuck and you feel like bits are too repetitive, change something around. It could be a small change, it could be a large change, but I guarantee you it'll add some spice to your song and elevate it to the next level. All right, I have been Peter Elfman. You take care of yourself and don't take any shit from anybody. Happy holidays, and I will catch you in the next one.